Welcome back to the Y.E.S Fitness Longevity Podcast, where we help you get insight on how to get fit, feel younger, and live better. I hope everyone is enjoying this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Spring has sprung, so let's get outside and get moving a little bit. I'm done today. April 6th, I believe it is the end of our New Year, New You contest. 8 weeks they've been going at it to see who can lose the most fat and gain the most muscle to win some cash prizes. A reminder to those who might be watching that the final in-body scan is due on either from Wednesday the 3rd through Saturday the 6th. No scans will be accepted before Wednesday or after the 6th. Another note on this is that you're not required to hand in a food journal. You're welcome to if you'd like, but there are no points awarded for food journals next week. Be more than happy to look over your journal, give you some ideas and some help with it, but it is not required for the contest. And if you do hand it in, you will not receive any bonus points. And second, we've got our spring Fit in 42 starting April 15th. Fit in 42, if you're not familiar, is our all-inclusive program that transforms people's lives. If you're interested in that, I'm sure you'll be able to find some posts on our Facebook page, Y.E.S Fitness Burlington, and learn more about it there. So one of the keys to Fit in 42 is everything that we do in the Fit in 42 program matches up with their goals, what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to not just accomplish a transformation of their body, meaning that they're going to lose fat and gain some muscle, but they're going to try to transform their lives to be able to learn what they need to be able to do to continue on with the process after that 6-week period. Because in that 6 weeks, we're going to develop some habits, not just nutrition habits, but some exercise habits, sleep habits, stress habits, hydration habits, the whole 9 yards, mindset, very, very important. So those kind of things are things that we address in our Fit in 42. And each of those things are addressed specifically to help change the habit, to transform the body. So what I want to do today is I want to talk to you a little bit about nutrition. And the nutrition I'm going to talk to you about needs to line up with your goal, what you want to accomplish. Certainly someone can follow this nutrition plan. It's nutrition a bit more plant-based, the reasons why for plant-based. And we've had success with people in Fit in 42 that have followed a plant-based diet. But typically, a more animal-based protein diet is for when you want to build some muscle mass. We know that if you're trying to build muscle and you're doing some strength training, you should probably have 1.4 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you divide that by 2.2, so that'd be about 75. You probably weigh about 80 kilograms. So you probably need about 120 grams as a minimum of protein per day, but so something like that. But the idea is here that if you're trying to gain muscle, you want to have a certain amount of protein in your diet. In Fit in 42, we're trying to gain muscle and burn fat. So typically a high protein diet or high protein diet with no refined sugars, no simple sugars, no refined carbohydrates will help you lose fat. But what we're going to talk to you about today is the type of nutrition that you need, specifically protein, to help you live longer, help you ward off disease, help you be able to live the life that you want to live. So that's what we want to talk about today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to define what is protein, because some people have a problem with that. They don't know what protein is and what protein isn't when they try to work it into their meal plans. So you have animal-based protein or animal source proteins, which would be meat, fish, cheese, eggs, any of those products from an animal like that is an animal source, so it's considered an animal-based protein. And then we've got a more plant-based protein, which would include nuts, seeds, legumes like peas, beans, lentils, quinoa, tofu, and there's some vegetables, for example, like broccoli and Brussels sprouts that have protein in them. That is a more plant-based protein source. So what makes protein so important? There's over 20,000 different proteins in our bodies. There's virtually no process that goes on in your body that does not include protein. So, for example, proteins are involved in the secretion of the acids to break down your foods in your stomach. Proteins are involved in the nerves that are in your backside, so when you sit down, you feel the seat. Certainly, proteins are involved in making the muscles move, contract, and relax. So, proteins are involved in every process in the body. And they're the building blocks, they're the workhorses of the body. They help us build the body, they help us maintain our muscle mass. They're found both inside and outside of the cells, for example, in the bloodstream. So they're everywhere in the body, and they're very, very important for different processes in the body. And the type of proteins that we have affect the different processes. So we're going to talk about agglomeration of protein. What that is proteins will build up inside our cells and around our cells. And when that occurs, it plays an important role in the age-related diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, macular degeneration, all this kind of stuff because of protein agglomeration. So in essence, what happens is proteins go into the cells and they either build up or break down, build up, break down, this type of process. And there's things that are called lysosomes. And these lysosomes are like little incinerators in your body that burn up the debris of the protein. Now, what can happen is not all the protein is eliminated from the cell over time. Not everything works perfect all the time. So that protein stays within the cell. And over time, it builds up and builds up and builds up to the point where it chokes the cell, and basically the cell can no longer work the way it's supposed to work and dies. So, for example, think of this. Let's say you had a factory. You have a factory and you have just an exact amount of employees working, and these employees do what is necessary for the factory to work correctly. And over time, some of these employees don't work as well, and you start to bring in more employees, and it gets more crowded. And so employees start to relax a little bit, and the building gets more crowded and more crowded. It's crowded to the point where the factory no longer can work correctly and eventually has to shut down. This is what happens in your cells. The cell can no longer work correctly. It no longer can break down the protein correctly, and it no longer can eliminate or get the protein out of the cell correctly or out from around the cell correctly, and the cell dies. So what does this affect? This will affect the brain. For example, Alzheimer's. It's a form of dementia. It builds up in the brain. They believe amyloid is the protein, and that amyloid will be washed out, or the waste is taken away at night when we sleep. If we get enough sleep, if you don't get enough sleep, it doesn't get taken away. But if the cell isn't working properly over time, it builds up and builds up and builds up to the point the cell dies. So when about 86 billion cells in your brain dies, about a quarter of your brain, you'll start to feel the effects of that, and you'll start to see the signs of dementia. And even the super centurions, those people who live to 110, 115 years old, will start to feel the effects of this protein agglomeration over time, because the body's just going to break down eventually, and it'll cause those cells to die. Another area, for example, Parkinson's in the brain. Without getting too technical, the cells that are in that part of the brain begin to get protein clusters in them. They can't get the protein out, and it'll start to affect the small motor control of the body. Thus, we have Parkinson's. The nerves. So let's say the nerves in the spinal cord start to get some protein agglomeration, and they begin to die off and don't work correctly. That will affect things like our reflexes. So we start to lose our balance. So as young, we can stand on one foot all day long, and we get a little bit older, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, and you can no longer stand on one foot because the cells that are necessary in those nerves to do that function are no longer able to do it because of the protein agglomeration. Body temperature, all the time, pardon me, we lost a little internet connection there for a second. So I'm going to go back to the heart. So now let's say the systems and nerves that tell the heart when to pump blood, or the muscles themselves in the heart no longer pumps as much blood. What happens? We're not pumping blood as well anymore. We may have a heart attack, or it could affect the blood vessels. So blood vessels, the nerves, or I should say the cells in the blood vessels start to get stiffened because of protein agglomeration, and we have a stroke in the lungs. Maybe we start to stiffening of the lungs because of protein agglomeration in those cells. And we can't expend oxygen as well. We start to take in more bacteria than we normally do and become at a greater risk for pneumonia. So these are all different areas in the body where protein affects the aging process. So basically, a summary of this a little bit: eating animal protein accelerates the aging process, increases the risk for cancer, age-related diseases, including type 2 diabetes, heart disease, macular degeneration. All these types of things will be accelerated with this protein agglomeration. So I know myself personally, I have taken it upon myself to try to change my diet. I'm an Italian kid. I like meat as much as anybody, but I've gone to plant-based proteins in my lunch. I have nuts at my snack. Just about ready to switch over my breakfast to a plant-based protein breakfast. Dinner, we typically have meat. We'll have chicken. We don't have fish too often. Sometimes we have some red meat, but those are some changes that I've made because we know I'm in the business of trying to live longer and be healthier. So I want to talk a little bit about um, how to start to make it healthier, okay? Because I'm not asking you to, go vegan, go vegetarian right now. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to just become aware so you can start to make some small changes over time. That change in your diet may help you to live a longer, healthier life. So, processed red meats like cow, pig, sheep, salami, bacon, ham, sausage, hot dogs, all those kinds of things are processed red meats. Those are the things that we certainly need to make a change up the food chain from there. So what would we want to do? We want to try to get away from the processed red meats and go to just maybe a grain-fed barn animal red meat, okay? Get away from the processed stuff and just go to grain-fed mega barn animals. Are they the best? No, they're not the best, but they're a step up from the processed red meats. If you're doing the red meats from the grain-fed mega farms, you want to try to make a switch to some free-range grass-fed animals. So that would be a nice change right there. So get away from the chemicals and the foods that are being fed those barn animals and try to get more to a free-range fed animal. That would be a nice change. Another great change would be to get right from away from the red meat, that level, and go to more of a white meat, a chicken, a turkey. Next level change from there will be for preferably having a free range or a grass-fed chicken or turkey. It's a next step up from there. And then from the white meats, you're going to go right into fish. And particularly, you want to do some fatty fish that contains, high levels of omega-3s, such as salmon, herring, and sardines. So that would be a great change to go from those white meats up to fish, because fish is a big leap. Certainly in taste buds, people are not used to eating fish, but that omega-3 is real important in keeping the balance of the fats in our body between omega-6 and omega-3, and that's a discussion for another time. From fish, you want to try to get into those vegetable-based proteins, more of a plant-based proteins with the nuts, the legumes, the beans, lentils, the vegetables like broccoli, spinach, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. I know some people object to tofu, but tofu is a great choice. Mushrooms and some fungi-based meat substitutes. That would be the ultimate move, would be to get to those vegetable-based proteins. And there are some tricky things about following a vegetable-based protein diet. Obviously, it's going to be a discussion for another time because we want to go through a whole vegetarian or vegan diet. But those are the kind of changes you want to start to take a look at. You don't have to make them all at once. You just choose one meal. Like I chose my lunchtime first to try to clean that up a little bit. Or then I'm choosing my breakfast. Or instead of choosing one meal, just one meal a week. Make a change in either those red meats and try to go more to the white meat or go from the white meat to the chicken. Just one meal a week and then build from there, because we're not going to change our palate. It's not going to change overnight. It is very difficult. And we've had great success with people in Fit and 42 who've wanted to maintain or gain some muscle mass and lose fat. I can think of a woman who just recently did it. She was actually in her mid to early 60s who follows a vegetarian diet, maybe even vegan. I can't exactly remember. And she was able to build muscle mass because we were very focused on making sure she got the correct amount of protein in the program. Maybe we would have been able to build a little bit more muscle if she had a more of an animal-based program, but we were successful and she was happy with what we did. So again, you just need to make sure that whatever you're doing, it's tailored to what you're trying to accomplish. That's one of the keys. We set out a goal, but then we don't do what we need to do to obtain that goal. We say, well, we're trying, but no, everything you do should be geared towards maintaining that goal. So just in summary, eating a lot of animal protein accelerates the aging process. It increases the risk of cancer, age-related diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, macular degeneration. And those people who live longest, those people that are in the blue zones, we've talked about blue zones before, those pockets in the world that have the highest percentage of centurions, either have a very Mediterranean type diet, eat a lot of fish, or they don't eat meat at all, or very rarely do they eat meat. And that's one of the keys to their living as long as they do. Well, that's what I got for you today. Obviously, if you have any questions about the topic, certainly, let me know. Put it down in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. But until next week we have a special guest coming on. We have Danny Jackowitz of Danny Two Gun Training Systems. He is a master coach for the DVRT training system, Dynamic Variable Training System. And if you're interested in why we use sandbags and what the purpose of that whole system is, check out next week's podcast right here next Tuesday at 3:30, where we're going to give you more information on how to get fit, feel younger, and live better. Thanks for watching.